Democratic Congressman Elliot Engel of New York voted for Dodd-Frank. So, Congressman, can't you oppose this law without being a cheater or a crook?
Well, of course you can. I think the president got a little caught up in his rhetoric, but I think what he was trying to say is what my constituents say all the time, that people are very frustrated that the banks were bailed out. People are very frustrated that they think that the conduct of the banks was something that helped bring the whole economy down. And people are very, very frustrated. I think nothing is simplistic. There are many reasons why things happen.
But wasn't the president's rhetoric simplistic? I mean, to say that the only way you could oppose this law if you're a financial institution is if you're a crook or a lawbreaker.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think that was a little bit carried away.
But it was a written speech. I can understand if it was off the cuff, but this was a speech that was written, rewritten. You know how those things work. Well, it was thought out.
The president should hire me to write his speeches, and then he would say the same thing in a little different terms. I think people are frustrated with the banks. Look, I don't like to beat up on the banks. I'm a New Yorker. Banks are a very, very important part of the New York economy. I think everything needs to be balanced, but people are frustrated that banks that seem to be too big to fail somehow can do whatever they want, and if things go wrong, the government will bail them out.
Yeah.
That frustrates a lot of people, frustrates a lot of my constituents, and I think the president is responding to that.
It does, but and in fact, you cited the too big to fail and banks that should be broken up as one of the reasons why we needed Dodd-Frank. But in fact, we just came out with a report today that the biggest four banks, J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, Citigroup, and Wells Fargo, now have 62% of total commercial bank assets, and that's an increase from 54% 5 years ago. So despite all these new rules and regulations, we're going in the wrong way.
Well, a lot of people would say we are. I mean, some of us would have liked to have seen some more regulation, but we attempted to strike a balance with the Dodd-Frank bill, and time will tell if we have. I mean, I just think that we need to be very, very careful in this country. I think there is a feeling out there that people are very, very frustrated. You have these Occupy movements. I don't think we can just dismiss them. I think people feel that banks and others have access to Congress that they don't have, and people think that's really very, very unfair.
The big guys do. The big guys do. But we just had a banker here who was a small banker, small commercial banker. He says the big guys can afford all these million-dollar lawyers and lobbyists. They get the cut-asides from Dodd-Frank. We don't. We're stuck with a very complex banking regulation law that we don't understand. It's far too complex. It's making life much more difficult for the small guys, not the big guys.
Well, no legislation is perfect, and I would be the last one to cling to legislation if we find a better way and we can change it. The bottom line, though, is this: we deregulated, and I think it was a colossal mistake, and it certainly led to the financial crisis that we all find ourselves in.
Let me just be specific. What you mean when you say we deregulate? Are you talking about ending the Glass-Steagall Act that separated commercial and financial institutions?
Yes, and I voted for that, by the way. And a lot of people beat me up on the other side for doing that. I mean, we are attempting to, or what we attempted to do was to bring the system into the 21st century, but I think now we need to make sure that safeguards are in there. I mean, this bill,
but
this law,
go back to the way it was instead of creating a bill that nobody understands, which is Dodd-Frank. It's far too complex.
But look what happened when there was no regulation.
No. When I say the way it was, I'm talking about when there was Glass-Steagall. I'm talking about 11, 12 years ago, before we got into this subprime mess.
Well, I think that's one of the things that can certainly be considered. But in Dodd-Frank, we tried to regulate derivatives. I mean, that was nothing but legalized gambling as far as I'm concerned. And there's an attempt to do it. I mean, could there be changes in the law? Yes, but I don't think that, as my Republican colleagues say, the solution is repealing the entire bill. Well, maybe we need to tweak it. Maybe we need to soften it where it's rough around the edges. But I don't think anyone could reasonably argue that the banks were too deregulated, and that was a result.
No, but the guys that are getting killed right now,
financial crisis.
I understand, but the guys who are getting killed right now are the small guys, and they don't. Do you understand Dodd-Frank? I mean, I don't understand a lot of it.
Look, I understand, as in any omnibus bill, you know, every nuance can always come out. I mean, look, I don't think that legislation should be passed, and any of us on any piece of legislation should ever take the position that you know, we're not going to change it one iota. I mean, if there is something that's better that we can help, we can take care, as you say, of the little guys, I'm for that. Okay. But what I'm not for is a wholesale repeal, because I think that would put us back to where we were, and that was a catastrophe.
Well, again, it's ruining the lives of a lot of small bankers, and they're the folks that we need in this country. Elliot Engel, good to see you. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.